පුතාලා මේ පොඩි මිස්ටේක් එකක් වුණා ලයිව් එක පටන් ගන්න කලින් කැම් සෝස් එක මේ මට සිටප් කරලා තියෙන වැරදි. සෝ ඉතින් පොඩක් ලේට් වුණා. no matter. I think quickly you will find this. Okay, quickly you will find this. Okay. Quickly send all of your students, all of your friends that now live stream is on another streaming file. Okay. I'm terribly sorry for that. Yes, today we are going to cover this physics. Yes, grade 10 as well as all the physics lessons associated questions in grade 11. Okay, so these are the things to be discussed. These are things we are going to discuss. Okay, our first grade 10 lesson, we have to complete linear motion. Linear motion. And so this is associated with distance, displacement, and distance, speed here, velocity, finally acceleration. Okay, then after learning this acceleration part, we can study the rest of the things, Newton laws. The first thing we study is linear motion, and we have to answer the questions associated with that. Okay. Associated motion graphs. So that motion graphs you have to learn. Okay. So that knowledge must be in you. So whatever the types of physics questions we discussed, and sometimes we do lots of past papers. Okay. But if you know the concept clearly, you cannot answer them. Okay. Although you have done thousands of questions, you cannot answer the 1001th question. තේරුණේ පුතා? අපි මේ වෙනකොට පාස් පේපර්ස් ගොඩක් කරලා ටර්ම් ටෙස්ට් පේපර්ස් කරලා මොඩල් පේපර්ස් කරලා ඉන්නේ. හැබැයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අතහැරුණු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. That may be the 1001st 1001 වෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට බැරුව යන්න පුළුවන්. So in that case, what you have to do? In that case, you have to study all the theories, and you have to understand the concept. Concept එක ඔලුවට දාගන්න නැතුව කරන්න බෑ. So this is my usual way. මේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන්ම උගන්වන ක්‍රමේ. So okay, rest of the things after you learn in these motion graphs, you can do with Newton laws. Newton laws. Okay, so rest of the things are built up over these things. එහෙනම් අපි theory cover කරන ගමන්ම මේ physics questions ඔක්කොම ඉවර කරන්න බලමු. theory ඉවර කරන්න නෙමෙයි class එක කරන්නේ. We are not going to do this class to complete to cover the syllabus. Okay, so just to learn. Okay, without learning, without taking them into your mind, no need, there's no point of covering the theories. Okay, look at this. So simply you can answer the questions Okay, grade 11, so we do that alternatively. Now, linear motion, one question, linear motion and Newton laws. Yes, you can see this object, it's in stationary state. This object is in stationary state. Its mass is m. Assume that's 10 kilograms of mass. Okay, so you apply one external force, that's F1. Okay, that's equals to 50 newtons. That equals to 50 newtons. So another opposite force is applied on this object, that is F2. That's F2. F2 force is equals to, so this is the question appeared in your exam. Okay, imagine like that. So this F2 force is equals to 30 newtons of force. 30 newton. Okay, let's do that. 28. 28. Okay, so as this surface is not smooth, so all the surfaces are not smooth. Okay, but imaginary, we consider there's a smooth surface. But rough surface make another force against to the motion. Okay, so before the motion and at just as is this object is starting its motion, another force against to the motion, and while this object is moving, another obstacle force is created. We call that frictional force. We call it F dash here. Okay, so according to this surface, when this object is moving or just starts to move, that friction is equals to 2 newtons of force. Okay, so this is usual details we have been given. Okay, so this is what we have been given. Now, questions. What type of questions may asked? What type of questions may be asked to you? Okay, so these types of questions will be asked from you. So all the forces are given. So you have to find resultant force. Resultant force. So what's this resultant force? Or we call that external unbalanced force. So balanced force and unbalanced force you have to know. So here a resultant force. So most of the time some of the student think resultant force and external unbalanced forces. So they are two different things. But actually theoretically there are two names, but the same process happens. Okay, resultant force or external unbalanced force. So we have to find, if you know the external unbalanced force, your next question will be find the acceleration. Yes, calculate the acceleration. Okay, so on screen questions I have created for you. Okay, instantly. So now you can answer the question. Okay. Students who logged somewhat late, so you can take the time no matter. If someone logged now, කවුහරි කෙනෙක් YouTube බලන්න ආවේ මේ දැන් නම් මේ time interval එකත් එක්ක එයාටත් chance එකක් එනවා මේක ක්‍රමානුකූලව කරගෙන යන්න. කවුත් මේක shift කරන්න එපා උඩට. physics පාඩමක් නේ පුතේ චුට්ටක් හරි බැරුව ගියොත් සමහර කොටස් බැරුව යයි. හරි? ඒකින්ද පුතාලා තමන් පටන් ගත්ත තැන ඉඳන් ඉදිරියට වීඩියෝ එක බලාගෙන යන්න. මේ ලැබෙන knowledge එක සාමාන්‍ය පන්තියක ලැබෙන නැත්නම් අපි පොතක් බලලා ඉගෙන ගන්න දේට වැඩිය වෙනස්. හරි? So one by one, so logically you have to learn. Okay? You will take a logical knowledge. Okay, I'll do this calculation here. First one, resultant force or external unbalanced force. I'll denote that as force resultant. So I put R resultant force. Okay, so that's equals sum of all the forces with their direction. Because you know, force is a vector quantity. Vector quantity means it has magnitude as well as the direction, or it has a direction as well as the magnitude. So therefore, this force is with a direction. So we have to take this resultant force with its direction. So we add them together, F1. So that's to the right side. So next one is F2, and F dash is always against the motion. Okay, so that's F dash. Yes, F2 opposite. We don't know where to this happens. We consider this positive direction is this. Okay, then F dash is always against. So F1 is 50 plus F2. So that's minus 28. Okay, plus friction. So that's 2 Newton. That's also minus 2. Okay, so altogether minus 30 newtons of force plus 50. So we can end up with external unbalanced force is plus 20 newtons. So that means positive means external unbalanced force or resultant force is to the positive direction. Okay, so that's to the positive direction. So this calculation must be here. So your answer is 20 newtons of external unbalanced force. Then Putha, we have to calculate the acceleration. For the calculation of this acceleration, so we have to use Newton's second law. Newton's second law equation. Earlier syllabus, we had to prove this Newton's second law equation. So we had to derive that. But in the new syllabus, you no need to do so. Okay. But I'll prove it for you. Okay. So external unbalanced force, you know, before you find this acceleration as the answer for the second question, so you have to mention by applying F equals ME to the object. Okay, the positive direction to the object's motion. So this is must. So where do you apply this F equals MA? You have to mention it. Okay, good. So F is, so this is what? Newton කිව්වේ පුතා මේ කොහෙවත් තියෙන නිකම්ම ෆෝස් එකක් ගැන නෙමෙයි. කවුද නිව්ටන්? හරි? අපේ මේ කතා කරන නිව්ටෝනියානු ෆිසික්ස්. නිව්ටන්ගේ ෆිසික්ස් අපි මේ ඉගෙන ගන්නේ. ඒ තුල external unbalanced force means the sum of all the forces. Okay, so what actually act? May balance num? If this is balance, By the first law of Newton, he says if there's a balanced force, that means there's no external unbalanced force. That means this is zero. If this is zero, the total result is zero. What happens? This object may tend to stay at the stationary state or it will move at a uniform velocity. එක්කොයාව ඉන්න තැනම එහෙමම ඉන්නවා නැත්නම් uniform velocity එකකින් ගමන් කරනවා. So that's what Newton explained. So therefore, this force is not F1, that's not F2, that's not F dash. So we have to take the sum of that. So that's 20. That's 20. Mass is given as 10 kilogram. So acceleration is to be calculated. So you can calculate this acceleration equals 20 upon 10. So that's 2 meters. So acceleration is 2 meters per square second. So this is the answer. You know the acceleration now. So if you are given only this diagram and it may ask, so what is the displacement of this object after 5 seconds of time? මේ කිසිම දෙයක් දෙන්නේ නැතුව පුතා මේ ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක තප්පර 5කදී කොච්චර displacement එකක් කරනවද? What is the displacement of this object within 5 seconds of time කියලා දෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේ steps අපෙන් අහන්නේ. That must be in your brain. Okay, that must be in your mind. පුතාලගේ ඔළුවේ තියෙන්න ඕනේ මේක මොකක්ද කියන එක. Okay. So I stop here and I erase next these things and question is changed somewhat and ask you to do so. Okay, take some time to take them down. No matter Buddha, you can take a printer screen. Okay, if you think this is not important to take down, or there are some advanced questions later, so you can put them down. Don't worry, this is recorded in YouTube, so you can see that later. Okay, while you study this, ask your friends and no matter grade 10 and grade 11 students also, so invite them to see this. So this is another way of learning the same theories logically. Okay, good. Okay, the same question may appear in your exam in a different way. Okay, look at this. Simplify this somewhat. Okay. In your question, you will be given surface is smooth. Surface is smooth. Smooth surface. If the surface is smooth, frictional force F dash is always zero. Okay. So imagine like that kind of smooth surfaces are not available on this earth, but we can consider this space. Okay. Space is a smooth surface, but actually, you know, space is not a surface. Okay. I'll change this a little. Okay. So now that's 30. That's 30. So this one is 50. Okay, good. Question is, the only question, calculate the displacement of the object within 5 seconds. Okay. The only question we are given, calculate the displacement of the object within 5 seconds. So inside this question, so what are the theories you learned? පුතා මේ ප්‍රශ්නය ඇතුලේ linear motion covers. The knowledge of the linear motion is covered. And within this question, you can understand the Newton laws. Okay, Newton laws. You can learn that Newton laws, as well as you can learn the equilibrium and resultant force. So those things can be learned. So a single question covers several lessons. Okay. Okay. So I'll try to solve this. First thing you have to do. What's the first thing you have to do? මොකද්ද මාත් එක්ක parallel මේකට සම්බන්ධිච්ච පුතාලා කියන්න බලන්න type කරන්න. මොකද්ද අපි පළමුවෙන්ම කළ යුත්තේ? Then what's the first thing you have to do here? Okay. The first thing you have to do, find the external unbalanced force. So that's F resultant කියලා මම කලින් ලිව්වා. Now I write external unbalanced force U unbalanced BL. External unbalanced force. So that's equals F1 plus F2. Okay, F1 is to this direction and F2 is to that direction. If there are several forces, if there's any other force, okay, if there are several forces, the same procedure is applied. Okay, F1 is to positive direction, so that's 30 newtons plus F2 is 50, so that's to negative, so that's 50. So your answer is minus 20 newtons of external unbalanced force. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to do. But question asks the total displacement of the object within 5 seconds. So we cannot calculate that at once. So first of all, you have to calculate the associated variables. So that's the external unbalanced force. Then you have to calculate acceleration. As a second step, you can calculate acceleration. To find the acceleration, you have to apply F equals ma, but before that you have to state that by applying F equals ma to the motion of the object. Okay, so motion is considered to the positive direction. What's the external unbalanced force? If we consider this direction, external unbalanced force is minus 20. Minus 20 equals mass of the object is still 10 kilogram. So 10 into A. So acceleration equals minus 20 over 10. So that's minus 2 meters per square second. Minus 2 meters per square second. Okay. What's the meaning of this? Minus 2 meters per square second. So that means object increase its velocity to the negative direction. That means within second, okay, second by second, it increases its velocity to the negative direction. Or if you consider there's initial velocity with the time 2 meters per second, 2 meters per second. So velocity decreases to the positive direction. Or another way you can think, velocity is increasing to the negative direction, 2 meters per second. Okay, another 2 meters per second. So that altogether 2 meters per second, 4 meters per second, 6 meters per second, 8 meters per second. So likewise, it is negatively increased to the negative direction. Or if there's initial velocity like 100 meters per second, පුතා මෙහෙම velocity එකක් පටන් ගද්දි තිබ්බනම් because of this deceleration, or minus acceleration, what will happen? That velocity is decreasing second by second with the value of 2 meters per second. Then how it happens? 10 meters per second initially, in the next second, 98 meters per second, the next second, 96 meters per second, 94 meters per second. So likewise, velocity is decreasing. So that's the meaning of this minus value. Okay, good. Let's move ahead. Calculate the displacement of the object within 5 seconds. So this is the acceleration. Earlier, we had equation to calculate this displacement at once. Okay, within a single step we can calculate. So those are named to be motion equations. ඉස්සර පොතේ motion equation කියලා જાතියක් තිබුණා. ඒවා අපි proof කළා. නිකම්ම motion equation apply කළේ නෑ කටපාඩම් කරලා. ඒවා ඔප්පු කරන්නත් තිබ්බා අපිට. දැන් ඒවා syllabus එකෙන් ඉවත් වෙලා. හරි. ඉතින් කනගාටුයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගැන. කමක් නෑ. අපිට motion graphs තියෙනවනේ. We have motion graphs. Okay, let's do it. Acceleration equals by the theories, acceleration is delta v upon delta t. Okay, that means change of velocity over change of time. Change of velocity, that means v2 minus v1 over change of time t2 minus t1. Final time, initial time. Final velocity, initial velocity. So difference is known as delta. Okay, so that's the basic equation. If the initial velocity is 0, because this object is at stationary state, so to begin with this question we told that with the first second of time, after the first second of time, so what is the velocity of the object because of this acceleration? Okay, so that's minus 2 meters per second. Okay, the next second, what's its velocity? So that's minus 4 meters per second. So likewise, at the fifth second, පස්වෙනි තප්පරය අවසාන වෙනකොට එයාගේ velocity කීයද පුතේ? So that's 10 meters per second. So that is 10 meters per second. හරි. එහෙනම් පුතා අපි velocity time graph එකක් අපිට අඳින්න පුළුවන්. මේ දේවල් tabulate කළොත් ඔයාලට හොඳට පැහැදිලි වෙයි කියලා මම හිතනවා. Okay, next thing you have to do is just a table. Okay, so here you can put velocity and time. Velocity and time. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We consider only 5 seconds of time. Okay, so this is by seconds, so this is by meters per second. The 0th second, the velocity also 0. Okay, in the first second of duration, පළවෙනි තත්පරයේ අවසානයේ පුතේ මෙයාගේ velocity එකක් එයාට ලැබෙනවා කීයද? What's that value? 2 meters per second, but that value is minus 2 meters per second. The second, so that's minus 4. Third second, that's minus 6. Fourth second, that's minus 8. At the fifth second, that's minus 10. So now there's a table. We can tabulate this data. Okay, so we have tabulated. Now we are going to plot this graph. Okay, so how to plot? Okay. Time axis. So why did I use this plus and minus because velocity time graphs, if you draw a velocity time graph, it has minus values because velocity is also a vector quantity. Okay, within 5 seconds of time, what happens? 5 seconds. At the fifth second, what will be the velocity? That velocity is minus 10 meters per second. So you can plot all these values no matter. Okay. So initially, the 0th second velocity is 0. The first second minus 2. So likewise, in the fifth seconds of duration, what happens to the object's motion? It's like this. Okay. Let it go. Okay. So this is the graph. Velocity is gradually increased to the minus direction. Okay, now this is a velocity time graph. Okay, so you can calculate the answer. Answer means total displacement within 5 seconds of time. Total displacement within 5 seconds of time. So you can calculate that in this velocity time graph. So this is a VT graph. Another one is displacement time graph. Displacement time, velocity time. So next is acceleration time graphs. So last one is not in our syllabus. Okay. So that is in A level. Okay. Next thing, gradient of the displacement time graph gives gradient M. Gradient of displacement time graph gives the velocity. And the gradient of velocity time graph gives the acceleration. And on the other hand, what happens? Area under the acceleration time graph gives velocity as well as area under the velocity time graph gives the displacement. If you simply calculate the area under the graph, you can find the total displacement. Okay, area. What's the area? Area of trapeze, area of triangle. So that's half into base into perpendicular height, half base is 5, perpendicular height is 10. Okay, so you can cut this 2 to 2. That's 1. 10 to 2. How many 2's for 10? So that's 5. 5 times 5, 25. So answer is 25 meters. So displacement equals area. Displacement equals area under the graph. So this is the graph. So according to your theories you learned in grade 10, this is okay. 10 වසරකදී පුතාලා ඉගෙන ගත්තු තියරිස් වලට අනුව මේක හරි. ඇත්තටම මෙතන උනේ මොකද්ද කියලා දැනගත්තොත් theoretically ඒක තමයි ඉගෙන ගත්තා කියලා කියන්නේ. So now I'll questions like this. If any object is moving at the velocity of uniform velocity of 2 meters per second. So uniform velocity 2 meters per second, not acceleration. So that's uniform velocity. After 5 seconds of time, පුතා තප්පර 5කදී within 5 seconds of time, this object displays. So what's that value of displacement? මේ displacement value එක කීයද පුතා? How do we calculate that? Within 5 seconds of time, what's the total displacement? 2 meters per second. තප්පරයට මීටර් දෙකයි නම් තප්පර පහකදී කොච්චරක් ගමන් කරනවද? So that displacement equals 2 per second, then within 5 seconds 2 times 5. Okay, so that equals 10 meters. What this 2? 2 is velocity. What's this 5? So that's time. Okay, S equals Vt. Okay, because by the theoretically V equals displacement upon time. So that's basic equation. That's basic equation. Velocity equals displacement per second. Okay, so that's you have applied your general knowledge. If 2 meters of displacement happens within a second, within 5 seconds, that displacement may be 2 times 5. That means 10 meters. Because the constant velocity. තප්පරයකට දෙකක් ගියා නම් තප්පරයකට පහකදී කොච්චරක් යනවද? ඒත් පුතා ඇක්සලරේට් වෙනකොට මේ කතාව වෙනස් වෙනවා. අපිට මෙහෙම සරලව කාලයෙන් වැඩි කරලා උත්තරේ ගන්න බෑ. තප්පර පහෙන් මල්ටිප්ලයි කරලා උත්තරේ ගන්න බෑ. හේතුව at the 5th second its velocity is 10. This may be positive or negative. හරි? පස්වෙනි තප්පරයේදී velocity එක 10යි. Uniform නෑ. In the 0th second, that means initially its velocity is 0. If we take a midpoint at the 3rd second, okay, at the 3rd second, its velocity is 6. එහෙනම් පුතා අපි දැන් time එක multiply කරන්න කීයද? So we cannot do so. In that case, we have to use a mean velocity or mean speed. We have to consider. එහෙනම් may object එකට this object has two velocities now. Imagine I'll erase this. හොඳටම තේරුම් ගන්න. Initial velocity u equals 0. අපි v1 කියලාම දාමු. v1 equals 0. Okay. After 5 seconds of time, t equals 5 seconds. After 5 seconds of time, the object's velocity equals මම minus sign කරලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න positive විදිහටම හදනවා. graph එක positive graph එකක් විදිහට හිතාගෙන. So that's 10 meters per second. Okay. තප්පර පහකදී කොච්චර මීටර ගානක් ගිහිල්ලද? So that displacement is what? Okay. කලින් ගාන නම් තප්පරයකට මීටර් 2යි. එහෙනම් තප්පර පහකට දෙකේව 10ක් ඩිස්ප්ලේස් වෙලා. එහෙනම් මීටර් 10ක් ගිහින්. මෙතන. If you use this V2 value 10 meters per second, තප්පරයට මීටර් 10 නම් තප්පර පහේදී within 5 seconds of time, this object displays 50 meters. තප්පරයට මීටර 5යි නම් තප්පර 5ට ගමන් කරනවා. Yes, 10 meters per second, 5 times that 50 meters. But it is not reasonable because initial velocity is 0 here. In that case, we have to use a mean velocity instead. Okay, what we do? So mean velocity, we have to take that equals v1 plus v2 and we divide by 2. පුතේ v1 v2 එකතු කරලා දෙකෙන් බෙදනවා. So how to do that? 0 plus 10 division 2. Then you can end up with 10 plus 0, 10, 10 divided 2. So that's 5 meters per second. So that's the mean velocity. 5. අපි සලකනවා මේ ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක ගමන් කළේ තප්පර බිඳුවේදී 0 meters per second කියලා නෙමෙයි. This object moved with the velocity of 10 meters per second. අපි ඒක සලකන්නෙත් නැහැ. අපි හිතනවා මේ ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක මේ මුළු ගමන පුරාම ගමන් කළේ 5 meters per second කියලා. Initially its velocity is 5 meters per second, and finally also its velocity 5 meters per second. So that's a uniform velocity of 5 meters per second කියලා අපි සලකනවා. If you consider that, එහෙනම් තප්පරයට මීටර 5යි නම් පුතේ තප්පර 5කදී මීටර 25ක් යනවා කියලා උත්තරේ ගන්නවා. Yes, by using this mean velocity, okay, displacement equals mean velocity times time. That means mean velocity is 5 meters per second and the time is also 5, altogether 25. පුතා මේ graph එකෙන් මේ වැඩේ උනේ මෙහෙමයි. 25 meters. Look at this. So area under the graph කියලා අපි මේ දෙකෙන් බෙදලා ගත්තේ අර velocity එකමයි. එයාගේ mean velocity හොයන්න 10 meters per second කියන එක අපි දෙකෙන් බෙදුවා. Okay, so you can see here that's minus 10, this minus 10 value. Okay, now you can understand. So then the answer becomes minus 25 meters according to this graph. Okay, if we consider the minus value, mean of this is object has displaced 25 meters to the opposite direction. 25 meters to the opposite direction. ඒ කියන්නේ මෙයා ගමන ආරම්භ කළේ O කියන point එකේ ඉඳන් නම් due to this additional 30 newtons of force, this object displaced to the opposite direction is how many meters within 5 seconds? So that's 25 meters මෙයා displaced වුණා කියලා අපි හොයාගන්නවා තප්පර කීයකටද? 5 seconds වලදී. මේ තමයි සමස්ත ක්‍රියාවලියම අවබෝධ කරගන්න හැටි. So that's how we understand overall process. Okay, so this is the way of understanding overall process. නිකම්ම සමීකරණයක් දාලා උත්තරය ගන්න. graph එකක් ඇඳලා ඒකේ gradient එක හොයලා පිළිතුර දාන්න. මුකුත් තේරෙලා නැහැ උත්තරය එනවා. Okay, so you know nothing but answers are coming. ඉතින් එහෙම ඉගෙනගෙන හරියන්නේ නේද? හරි? Okay, print screen එකක් වගේ ගහගන්න time waste වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද අපිට හුඟක් දේවල් තියෙනවා කතා කරන්න. ඊළඟට පුතා විභාගෙට එන අනිත් ප්‍රශ්න වර්ගය තමයි graph එක දීලා අනිත් දේවල් අහන්න. හරි? graph එක දීලා අහන්න පුළුවන් external unbalanced force කීයද කියලා. ඒක නම් මේක හොඳටම තේරුණාම තමයි ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. හරි? Good. Okay, I'll erase this. Look at this. Here's an object. We know only the mass of this object, that's 5 kilogram. Mass of the object is 5 kilogram. There's an external force F. So that's F1. F1 equals 10 newtons. F1 equals 10 newtons. The frictional force F dash of the object is, okay, let's assume that's X. It is not given. Friction එක පුතා දීලා නැහැ. Right? If the frictional force is 0, that surface must be a smooth surface. Okay, if this is a rough surface, definitely this friction is having a value. If this is a rough surface, this frictional force is having a value. Okay, and the motion is described by a velocity time graph. So this is time, this is a velocity, and units meters per second, time seconds. Okay, within 5 seconds of time, object's velocity has been changed from 0 to 10. Simple. මම මේ simple calculations දෙන්නේ theory එක understand කරගන්න. හරි? So that's 10 meters per second. Okay. Associated questions. First one. Calculate acceleration. Calculate A. මම එතනින් නවත්තනවා. Okay. So if you calculate A, what are the things you can find? Okay. This is F naught. F naught force. Second question. What is the value of F naught? පුතාලා කලින් ගානයි මේ ගානයි හදන්න පුළුවන් නම්, හරි, මේ කොටස් දෙක තේරුම් ගත්තොත් ඔයාලට මේ පාඩම උගන්වන්න පුළුවන්. You can teach. හරි, අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම පුළුවන්. කලින් අපි හදපු ගානයි මේ ගානයි තේරුණා නම් පුතේ උගන්වන්න පුළුවන්. එච්චර knowledge එකක් එනවා. මේ ගණන් 100ක් හදන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. හරි? ඒක ඇත්තද නැද්ද කියන එක මේකෙන් හොඳටම පැහැදිලි වෙනවා. Okay, I'll give you 3 seconds of time. මේකට යන්නේ විනාඩි 2ක් යන්නෙත් නැහැ. මම විනාඩි 3ක් දෙනවා පුතාලට හිතන්න. ඔයාලට එන උත්තරේ type කරන්නත් පුළුවන්. Okay, so you can type the answer also. ඔයාලා පහුවෙලා ආවට කමක් නැහැ. මෙතන උත්තරේ type කරලා දාන්න. හරි? වීඩියෝ එකේ time එක බලලා වීඩියෝ එකේ time එකත් එක්කම answer එක දාන්න. මම අහනවා පුතාලා මේ වෙනකොට කවු හරි දරුවෙක් මේ ලංකාවේ මේ රටේ, හරි, මේ පළාතේ මගේ පන්ති නොයන දරුවෙක් ප්‍රශ්න ගොඩාක් කරලා ඇති. මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ටිකක් වෙනස්. හරි? මේක පුළුවන් නම් හුඟක් දේවල් ඔයාලට පුළුවන්. Very good, Sudarshini. Selaja. Acceleration is පුතා -2ද මන්ද දාලා තියෙන්නේ. I think your acceleration is wrong. So you have to use units as well. Units එහෙමත් දාන්න. Okay. So what's the value of f naught? So I'm looking for that. Okay. Now I'm going to do this. Okay. This is a velocity time graph. In velocity time graphs, gradient m of the graph gives the acceleration. Okay. So this is our simple format to keep in mind. So acceleration equals to the gradient. Acceleration equals to the gradient. Gradient equals delta y over delta x. Okay. Change of y for a unit change of x. x එකකින් වෙනස් වෙනකොට y කීයකින් වෙනස් වෙනවද? නමුත් මෙතන x කාලය ඒ කියන්නේ තප්පර එකකට meters per second කීයක් වෙනස් වෙනවද? එහෙනම් ගැලපෙනවා. Acceleration equals the gradient equals delta y upon delta x. That means change of y means final y or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. First substitute x values. Yes, x2 is 5. Yes, x1 is 0. Yes, corresponding y values. x5, what's the y value? That's 10. 10 subtraction 0 to 0. It's a graph 0 to 0. So here that equals 10 upon 5. So the answer is 2 meters per square second. 2 meters per square second. So your answer is correct. Okay. Calculate A. So this is the acceleration. ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයකට පිළිතුරක් නිසා ඉරි දෙකක් අඳිනවා. 2 meters per square second. So I think that's clear for you. Next, what is the value of f naught? F naught value එක කීයද? හුඟක් අයට වරදින තැනක්. So this is a point. So usually you get confused because you know really Newton laws. පුතාලා Newton laws දන්නේ නැති නිසායි මේ වැඩේ වෙන්නේ. Okay? So you can actually like this video. You can push the like button and subscription button you can do. So most of the time you forget that. That's why I tell you. Okay? What is the value of f naught? Now you have already calculated acceleration, therefore I erase that part. Okay, so now we are going to do this. F naught, find f naught. F naught is what? The second question. F naught directly හොයන විදිහක් නිව්ටන් මහත්මයා අපිට කියලා දීලා නැහැ. Shashika Disanayaka has taken this value f naught equals 10 newtons. Heshan Patirana Puta f naught equals 20 newtons කියලා අරන් තියෙනවා. අපි බලමු. Okay, let's consider that. ඔක්කොටම කලින් unbalanced force එක හොයාගමු. First of all, we have to find the external unbalance first. So in that case, you have to mention by applying Newton's second law by applying F equals ma. So you have to tell it first. Okay, F equals ma. So we don't know external unbalanced force. So this F is not F naught. So this F is not F1. So what this F? F is the overall F. Samasta force resultant force or the external unbalanced force. Okay, let's calculate that. So the two methods. ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන් ආදේශ කරන්නත් පුළුවන්. So that's F equals ma. So what this F? You know, F equals F naught plus F1. මෙයා දාලා ma කියලා ලියන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි confuse ඉන්නේ. ඒක වෙනම හදමු. අපි සාමාන්‍ය විදිහට. Okay, let's find external unbalanced force. F equals mass, so that's 5. Acceleration, you find that 2. So F equals 10 Newton. So this is not F naught. This is what? External unbalanced force. External unbalanced force. But you know, but F equals external unbalanced force equals F naught plus F1. Okay. F is 10 newtons. F naught is to be calculated. F1 is that has been given 10. Okay. Therefore, subject F naught. F1 is minus. Okay. F1 here. That's 10. The opposite direction. Therefore, you have to put that minus F1. Okay. Look at this. Opposite direction. So because you consider this, your right hand side is positive. Therefore, opposite forces are considered as minus because this is a vector quantity. So F naught equals minus 10 goes to the other side as addition. Then 10 plus 10. F naught equals 10 plus 10. So that's 20 newtons. Okay. F naught is 20 newtons. හරිද වැරදිද කියලා අනිත් පැත්තට හදලා බලන්න පුතේ. 20 newtons, 20 newtons, okay, plus 10. මේ පැත්තට 20ක් තියෙනවා, අනිත් පැත්තට 10ක් තියෙනවා. So external unbalanced force is what? Positive 10. Okay, එහෙනම් හරිනේ. Positive 10 external unbalanced force අපිට ආව හරි. හැබැයි 10ක් unbalance වෙන්න මේ පැත්තට 10ක් තියෙනකොට 10ට 10 balance නේ. එහෙනම් unbalance 10ක් එන්න ඕනේ. So we have to take unbalanced 10. In that case, another 10 must be here. So it's 10 Newton force, cut this one, and to resultant value is additional 10. Okay, so that's F naught is 20 newtons. That's how it happens. පුතා කොහොමද ඒක? හරි? මෙච්චර කල් ප්‍රශ්න උත්තර මොනවද අහනවා? ඒ උගන්වපු ක්‍රමයකට හැදුව උත්තරය ගත්තා. මොකක්ද කළේ කියලා අපි දන්නේවත් නැහැ. හරි? So දැනගෙන හිටපුව ඇති. නමුත් මේක වෙනස්. හරි? Good. Newton laws ඉවරයි. Okay, that's over. Motion විභාගයට එන මට්ටමේ motion කොටස් අපි අවසන් කළා. So that has been completed. හරි? වැරදි නෙමෙයි, හරි නේද? Newton laws completed question එක ඇතුළේම, and motion, linear motion is completed. හැම එකම නෙමෙයි. විභාගයක් ගොඩ දාන මට්ටමට ඇති. තව මොනවද අතෑරුණේ? displacement time. ඔන්න පැටලෙන තව තැනක්. displacement time. වෙන දවසක ඒ කොටස කවර් කරනවා. හරි? displacement time. ඒ කියන්නේ පොඩි පොඩි ප්‍රශ්න දෙකක් දෙන්න නම් හරි. equilibrium ඒක මෙතන ඉගෙන ගත්තද? equilibrium නැද්ද? ඉගෙන ගත්තා. මම පෙන්නන්න ඔප්පු කරලා. Okay, look at this. Imagine F1 is 10 newtons that has been given. If you come across this F0 value is again 10 newton. So 10 newton, 10 newton, external unbalanced force becomes 0. External unbalanced force becomes 0. External unbalanced force becomes 0. That means F0 plus F1, F0 here, resultant කියනවම capital R දාන්න. F0 is 0, sorry 10, plus here's minus 10. Yes, that's opposite direction. Altogether 0. External unbalanced force is 0. අසමතුලිත බලය බිඳුවයි. Unbalanced force is 0 means it is balanced. අසමතුලිතතාවය බිඳුවයි කියන්නේ අසමතුලිතතාවයක් නැත. අසමතුලිත නෑ කියන්නේ පුතා සමතුලිතයිනේ. නේද? හරි? Unbalanced force is 0 means this is balance. Balance means සමතුලිතතාවය, equilibrium. That concept you learned. ඒ concept එකත් ඉගෙනගෙන. Okay? Good. විනාඩි 5න් motion Newton laws අවසන් වෙනවා. හරි? friction කොහොමද සම්බන්ධ කරන්නේ? How do we use the concept of friction here? If we have to calculate another variable f dash, so our other variables must be known. මේ දෙන්නම දීලා තියෙන්න ඕන අපිට. හරි? එහෙනම් අපි මේ ගාන මම ටිකක් වෙනස් කරනවා. I'll change this a little. Okay? So this is 18 Newton. F naught is 18 Newton. දැන් දන්න අය දන්නවා මනෝමයෙන් කියන්න පුළුවන් value එක. Now you can send the value of f dash. Real live අහන් ඉන්න පුතාලා friction එකේ value එක දාන්න. According to the above sum. පුජ්‍යලෙක් නිව්ටන් 18ක් දීලා තියෙනවලු මේ පැත්තෙන්. අනිත් පැත්තෙන් 10යිලු. එයා accelerate වෙන හැටි හොයාගන්න දීලා තියෙනවා motion graph එකක් එයාගේ. So it explained. The motion is explained by this graph. So that value you have calculated 2 meters per second. And you have calculated external unbalanced force F unbalance equals F unbalance equals MA. M is 5, acceleration is 2, so you calculate that 10 newtons. Okay, external unbalanced force is 10 newtons, but external unbalanced force 10 newton, F unbalanced 10 equals F naught plus F1 plus F dash. So this is to the forward direction and both of others to the negative direction. Okay, unbalance is 10. F naught. So what's that value? Yes, පොඩි වැරද්දක් වුණා. හරි. F naught must be 22. I'm sorry for that. So that's 22. හරි. Don't worry. පොත් බලන්න කලින් ටයිප් කරලා ඉගෙනගෙන උත්තර මතක තියන්න මේ උගන්නන්නේ. හරි. So ගාන අනිත් පැත්තට හදලා ඔයාලට දෙන්නේ. පුතා 10. Unbalanced force is 10 newtons. F naught is 22 plus F1 equals 10 but to the opposite direction, therefore that's minus 10 plus F dash. F dash is to be calculated. We don't know that. Okay, let's calculate. Yes, so minus 10, this becomes 12. 12 plus F dash equals 10. So F dash equals 10 minus 12. Okay, so F dash equals minus 2 Newton. F dash is minus 2 Newton. Minus 2 means not to this direction, but to the opposite direction. So F dash is equals to minus 2 Newton means that is to the opposite direction. Okay. එමයි friction එක සම්බන්ධ කරලා දෙන්නේ. But you have to concern there are three types of frictional forces. What are them? Static frictional force. Move නැතුව අල්ලගෙන ඉන්නවා උපරිමයක් දක්වා. හරි? Before the motion, what is the type of frictional force exists? So that is static frictional force. Okay, as just as it starts its motion, so that critical frictional force is known as limiting frictional force. මේ motion එක ඇතිවෙන්න ඔන්න මෙන්න තියලා ගන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම frictional force එකට අපි කියන limiting frictional force. And this is usual graph for that. අපි එදත් කතා කළා මේක. මේක දැන් විභාගයට එන කතාවක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. එකපාරක් ආවා. So this is the limiting frictional force, that's F dash n. Okay, with the time. Limiting frictional force, the maximum value. Okay, so this all the values are static frictional forces. At a certain level, it starts to move. As it starts to move, this frictional force suddenly drop down a certain value, not zero. Zero meaning now it is stable. Okay, so this is dynamic frictional force. ඕනෑම object එකක් motion එකක ඉන්නකොටත් friction එකක් තියෙනවා. So that's known as dynamic frictional force. Okay, good. Static, limiting and dynamic frictional force. පුතා motion මේ පාඩමට අදාළ critical දේවල් calculation වලින් නෙමේ theory වලින් ගොඩ දාලා ඉවරයි. පුතාලට තියෙන්නේ මේ concept ටික ඔලුවට දාගන්න. වෙන නැහැ. හරි? මෙච්චරයි තියෙන්නේ. මේක train කරගත්තොත් ඔලුව ඔයගලන්ට මේකෙන් ඕන ප්‍රශ්නයකට උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. Motion description and associated graphs. Okay, so these types of negative slope given graphs you have to describe. Time, velocity. 5th second, 10th second, 12th second, up to 5th second. So what's the nature of this motion? Minus 10. Velocity is minus 10 meters per second. So this object has some minus acceleration. Okay, so this minus uniform velocity of 10 meters per second, minus 10 meters per second. What's the mean of this? If the starting point is here, so this is the positive direction, so this is the negative direction. This object has displaced to the negative direction with increase in its velocity at the acceleration of, okay, minus 10 upon 5. So that's minus 2 meters per square second minus acceleration එකකින් පුතා ගමන් කරලා තියෙනවා. එන්න ඍණ පැත්තට velocity එක වැඩි වෙවි ගමන් කරලා තියෙනවා. Yes, what is the time taken for that? 5 seconds. Okay. Suddenly what has happened? When this object's velocity becomes 10 meters per second, 10 meters per second වලට velocity එක වැඩි වුණාම එයා ඒ velocity එකෙන්ම තවත් තප්පර 5ක් ගිහිලා තියෙනවා. Now uniform velocity 10මයි velocity එක. හරි, එයාත් තවත් ගමන් කරලා තියෙනවා. Yes. If you want to calculate the displacement, you can find the area under the graph. So that's half into base into perpendicular height. So that's half means this is also 5. 5 times 5, 25 kilo. So initial 5 seconds of time. So displacement is 25 meters as you calculated earlier. Okay. So within 5 seconds, it has displaced 25 meters. Another 5 seconds. So this is 5th second. So altogether 10th second. When it becomes 10th second, it further displays. So you have to add this displacement also. So that's a rectangle 10 times 5. So that's 50. Okay. So here 25, another 50 here. Meter 50ක් ගමන් කරලා තියෙනවා. The time duration is actually another 5, that means altogether 10 seconds, but displacement is another 50. 50 means here 25, this may be 75. Okay, because this displacement is 50. So that's how you calculate these things. මේ වගේ තැනක පුතා gradient එක හොයන්න ආවොත්, if you are asked to calculate the gradient, because we have to calculate this acceleration also. Here, what's the acceleration කියලා ඇහුවොත් මම වේගයෙන් විස්තර කරන්නේ. හරි, හිමීට ගන්න කොටසක් වේගයෙන් විස්තර කරනවා. How to calculate this part? Very simple, because you know acceleration is gradient, because this is velocity time graph. Gradient equals delta y upon delta x. Simply y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. First, my advice is to, very important, substitute these denominator values. What is x2? X2 here 12. X1 is, that's 10. Okay, 12 subtraction 10. 12 වලදී 0. Yes, 10 වලදී time එක x value එක 10 වලදී, what's that value? Minus 10. Okay, පුතා, what's the value? Minus time minus, so that's plus 10 over 12 subtraction 10, that's 2. So that's 5 meters per 5 meters per square second. 5 meters per square second. So that's how you calculate the acceleration. This type of a negative slope is there. Right? ඉතින් මේක උගන්වන්නේ දැන් ඉවරයි කියලා හිතලා ආයෙත් මතක් වෙලා කවුරු හරි දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා හිතලායි මේ කියලා දුන්නේ. හරි? අපි මේවා ඇත්තට තරම් හදලා තියෙන්නේ. Good. Questions papers කරලා මේ ටික ගොඩ දානවා කියලා හිතාගෙන. Paper 10ක් කළත් concept එක ඔලුවට යන්නේ නැහැ සමහර වෙලාවට. Sometimes concept is without your knowledge that knowledge becomes stagnant. එක තැන පල් වෙනවා. හරි? But you think like this. Logical learning is the best way. Logical learning තමයි වටින්නේ. Good. එහෙනම් පුතේ අපි ඊළඟට යනවා අපි grade 10 physics වල අපිට හම්බ වෙන ඊළඟ කොටසට. පිළිවෙලට යන්න force then done. force ඉගෙන ගත්ත කියන්නේ පුතේ force භාවිතා කරලා මොනවද අපිට effects of force. One is pressure. Okay, pressure means force upon area. Okay, so that's normal solid pressure. So the same thing, force is mg. Okay, and we can calculate that liquid pressure rho g h or h rho g. Okay, so we can calculate that liquid pressure. If you know the force, the turning effects, that's moment of force. Okay, so that's moment of force equals force into perpendicular distance to the line of action from the axis of rotation. ගොඩක් පැති වලට යන්න පුළුවන්. හරි මේ force එක පාවිච්චි කරලා. And force into displacement, that's work equals force into displacement. Okay, so lots of areas. Right? එහෙනම් අපි මේ හැම එකෙම මොනවද එක්සෑම් එකකට අහන්න පුළුවන් දේවල්. ඔයාලා දැන් ශිෂ්‍යයෙක් නෙමෙයි. ඔයාලට පුළුවන් මේ පරීක්ෂකයෙක් වෙන්න. එයා හිතන විදියට හිතන්න. So you have to think like that, then you find it very easy to answer the questions and make in questions. Pressure. Okay. Definition එක අහනවා exam වලට. What's known to be the pressure? So you can answer. So this is the force acting on an area. Okay, area. So this physics is very easy because we use international standard unit SI units. Okay, imagine this is 5 square meters and downward force is 20,000 newtons. 20,000 newtons. Perpendicular force. Yes, definition for the pressure is, so pressure exerts on this. Pressure equals force upon area. Definition: pressure is the perpendicular force act on unit area of surface. So pressure is what? Pressure is perpendicular force act on unit area of surface. Don't put symbols. When you define something, you have to write the complete word. Okay. Then our කලින් motion වලත් නොහිතපු මානයන් ඉගෙන ගත්තා. pressure වලත් නොහිතපු තැන් ඇති විභාගයේදී ඔයගොල්ලන්ගෙන් ප්‍රශ්න කරනවා. නොහිතපු තැන් ඇති. නේද? හරි. එහෙනම් ඒ දේවල් මෙතනදී දැනගන්න ලැබෙයි ප්‍රශ්න නිර්මාණය කරලා. Okay, look at this. Simple definition එකේ ගාන හදමු. What's the pressure here? Pressure equals force upon area. So force is 20,000 newtons. Don't put unit here. Area 5 square meters. Then you can end up with how many 5s to 20? So that's for 4,000. Final answer එකට unit තියන්න 4,000 newtons. Okay. Force is over area. Force is measured with newtons and area is by square meters. Yes, this positive powers goes to the numerator as negative powers. So meter to the power minus 2 newtons per square meter. So we call that Pascal. So 4,000 Pascal, the same thing. Okay. So these are the basic things. I think you have calculated lots of things associated with this. Okay. I risk that I make this somewhat complex. Okay. So what's this? Yes. You know this. Now you know. Very easy to understand. The animal. Okay, mass of that equals 2,000 kilogram and area of 1 foot is 1 foot area. එක කකුලක area එක අපි ගමු අලි කකුලක් සෙන්ටිමීටර් baby elephant සෙන්ටිමීටර් 10 හරි 10 into 10 10 into 10 centimeter 100 square centimeter. Don't forget you have to calculate this with meters. Then unit conversion you have to know. Therefore, you have to know the unit conversion. Okay, now the pressure created by four legs. පතුල් හතරම මගින් ඇති කරන pressure එක. Yes, how to find? Force upon area. Force upon area. What's the force? Look at this. This elephant අලියගේ නැට්ට අයින් කළා මම. Okay. Now its mass is 2,000 kilograms. So downward force equals actually weight. Okay. So you can think vice versa. Weight equals force. Weight is a force. We know that. Weight is a force. But you know force equal mass into acceleration. But here downward acceleration is g, gravitational acceleration, that's 10 usually. That's given in exam. Okay. Mass into acceleration. So that's mg. Weight equals force. Force equal mass into gravitational acceleration. Then you can find the weight or downward force here. So that's 2,000 into 10. weight of this elephant is 20,000 newtons. Okay, so we have to find the pressure created by the foot. අලි පැටියගේ කකුල් වලින් පොළොව මත ඇති කරන ප්‍රෙෂර් එක හොයන්න. මේක ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, අලි පැටියෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, හරි, නරි පැටියෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, හා පැටියෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, ඔයාලා වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. So we have to calculate the pressure like this. Good. Pressure equals mg, or downward force, okay, area. So force equals mg. Okay, so we have already calculated that mg, therefore I directly put that here. That's 20,000 newton. So area is 100 square centimeters. How to convert that into square meters? Square meter. මොකක්ද මේ value එක? Yes, what's the value we are going to use to divide these 100 square centimeters? අපි පුතා 12ට පොඩි ඉන්ටර්වල් එකක් ගන්නවා. හරි, ඊට පස්සේ ආයි විනාඩි 20කින් විතර, ඒ කියන්නේ 12යි 20ට විතර මම එතකොට ටික පැහැදිලි කරන්න ගන්නවා. හරි, පුතාලට නිදිමත නම් නිදා ගන්න ඇහැරිච්ච වෙලාවක බලන්න. හරි, නැත්නම් දිගටම අහගෙන ඉන්න. Good. චමල් ජීවන්ත පුතා දාලා තියෙනවා මේක 1000 වලින් බෙදනවා කියලා. හරි පුතේ, අපි බලමු. හරි, ඒ කියන්නේ පුතා මේ පාඩමට සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච එක මාර වටිනවා. චමල් ජීවන්ත පුතාගේ ස්කූල් එකත් කමෙන්ට් කරන්න. හරි, ජයලත් බණ්ඩාරතිලක නියමයි පුතා, ඔයාලා තමයි මේ සෙමිනාර් එකට සහභාගී වෙච්ච එකෙන් වැඩිපුරම benefited. So you are the students who are more benefited by this. Okay, good. මම ඔය මොනවා හරි උත්තර දෙන ළමයින්ට හරි කැමතියි. මේ බලන්න පුතා, 100 centimeter equals 1 meter. 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. මේ බලන්නකෝ. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද පුතේ ස්ක්වයර් සෙන්ටිමීටර් ස්ක්වයර් මීටර් එකක් කියන්නේ? 1 meter into 1 meter. So this equals what? Square meter. එකක් කියන්නේ පුතේ 1 meter into 1 meter. පුතාලා මේ ක්‍රමේ පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනෑම ක්‍රමයකට, ඕනෑම unit conversion එකකට very good. So that's a good method. 1 square meter equals 1 meter into 1 meter, but 1 meter equals 100 centimeter. So this is also 100 centimeter. So 1 square meter equals 100 centimeter into 100 centimeter. 100 into 100, that's 10,000. Centimeter into centimeter, square centimeter. So 1 square meter equals 10,000 square centimeters. එහෙනම් පුතේ කීයද බෙදන්නේ? 10,000 වලින් පුතා බෙදන්න. හරි? Okay, look at this. 20,000, 10,000. Look at this. Area equals 100 square centimeter ඇතුලේ 10,000 නෙවුවා කීයක් තියනවද? මේ එක අලි කකුලක. හරි? අලි කකුල් තියෙනවා මේ වගේ හතරක්. Okay, so you have to divide 100 upon 10,000. එක අලි කකුලක ඒරියා එක ඒ වගේ පුතේ තියෙනවා කීයද? හතරක්. ඔන්න දැන් අපි අවසාන පිළිතුර ගන්න හරි. ස්ක්වයර් සෙන්ටිමීටර් ස්ක්වයර් මීටර් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මෙතනම සිම්ප්ලිෆයි කරමු. හරි? එක්ක එපා කටුසටහන් ගන්න තැන එක කරන්න. 20,000 පේනවනේ දලිවුවාම 20,000 upon here 1 upon 100. Yes, how to calculate that? 20,000 upon 1 upon 100 කියන එකේ තේරුම මොකක්ද පුතා? හරි? මේකේ තේරුම 20000 බෙදීම 20000 බෙදීම 1යට 100 කියන එකනේ. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පුතාලා කරන්නේ multiplication එකක් කරලා reciprocal ගන්නවා. So that equals 20,000 division becomes a multiplication and 1 upon 100 becomes 100. Yes, you can end up with 20,000 and another two zeros. Yes, what's the value? 2 million. 2 million pascals. 2 million pascals. යාන්තම් පේනවා යටිනේ. හරි? ගානට. අපි හැදුවා අලි කකුල් ගානක්. There's a unit conversion there. Unit conversion. Okay. If you want to calculate 1 cubic meter, how many cubic centimeters? So we have several times used that in chemistry. Okay. Okay, you can simply take print screen. Okay, you can now see the screen. Number of likes equals to the remaining number of students. Okay. Then may then පුතෙක් log ගුණා. Now number of students එක්කෙනෙක් වැඩි like සංඛ්‍යාව දෙකකින් අඩුයි. Okay, so you can like the video. Real time වලට තමයි පේන්නේ. Okay, I'll erase this. Now, liquid pressure. Liquid pressure associated calculations. Okay, associated calculations. Liquid pressure. Okay, for this calculation, so this is area. This is the height of water column or whatever the liquid column. So this is height. Okay. So before that, you have to know another theory. So that theory part is density. Density. So that's equals to rho. Sometimes D is used. So density is defined to be density of a material is mass of the material of unit volume. Mass of a unit volume of a material. Okay, so SI unit mass is by kilograms and volume is measured with cubic meters. Okay, kilograms per cubic meter is the unit of that. How many kilograms per cubic meter. පුතාලා මේ වගේ දෙයක් තේරුම් ගන්නකොට when you understand these things, so you have to think like this. පුතාලට මෙන්න මේ විදිහට හිතන්න වෙනවා. So මේ වගේ දෙයක් නිකම්ම නිකන් unit වෙලා බෑ. This is not just a unit. Unit තියෙන්නේ අපේ පහසුවට. අපේ උදව්වට තියෙන unit. Okay? තේරුණාද? එහෙනම් කොහොමද unit උදව් කරගන්නේ ගාණක් හදන්න? මේ බලන්න. Cubic meter means 1 meter length, 1 meter breadth, 1 meter height, a cube shaped tank. 1 meter length, 1 meter breadth, and 1 meter height tank. Then the total volume of this is length into breadth into height. So 1 meter into 1 meter into 1 meter. So that's equals 1 cubic meter. එනම් පුතේ cubic meter එකක් කියන්නේ මීටරයක් දිග මීටරයක් පළල මීටරයක් උස ටැංකිය එකට කොච්චර කිලෝ ප්‍රමාණයක් අල්ලනවද අපි සලකා බලපු දේ. Okay? Yes. You have to consider the mass of the considered matter. Yes. What's the amount of mass contained in 1 cubic meter of that considered type of substance? අපි සලකා බලපු substance එකේ cubic meter එක කොච්චර උදාහරණයක් ගමු. If you consider water, අපි මෙයා පිරෙන්න වතුර දැම්මොත් වතුර කිලෝ කීයක් දාන්න වෙනවද cubic meter එකකට? Okay? Per cubic meter we have to put 1000 kilograms per cubic meter. Okay? So that's the real idea of that. ඉතින් මේක තේරෙනවද පුතා density කිව්වහම? නෑ. ඒක තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි? ඉතින් අපිට තේරුම් කරන්න තමයි unit තියෙන්නේ. unit වලට සමහරව කැමතිම නැහැ. unit නැත්නම් හොඳයි කියලා කියනවා සමහරව. හරි? පැහැදිලි නේද? So this is very important. unit වලින් තමයි ගණක් හදන්නේ. Look at this. Water, its density is 1000 kilograms per cubic meter. මට කියන්න වතුර cubic meter 5ක් කියන්නේ වතුර කිලෝ කීයක්ද? 1 cubic meter means 1000 kilograms. 5 cubic meter means 5000 kilograms. ගාන හදන්න unit උපකාරී වුනේ නැද්ද? equation තියෙන්නේ මොඩින්ට. units තියෙන්නේ මොලේ තියෙන අයට. හරි? පැහැදිලි. එහෙනම් අපි liquid pressure වලට යමු. density අදහසක් තියෙනවා දැන්. හරි? So, if you know the density, okay, you can find whatever the other variable, and if you know the density you can find the mass. So subject the mass equals density times volume. Okay, so this is one important thing we learned there. Mass equals density into volume. One important point. Okay, if the density of this filled liquid is rho, okay, let's calculate the pressure created on the surface of A. Downward force is F. Okay, so that force is created by the weight of this fluid. Therefore, liquid pressure equals force upon area, but force equals mass into gravitational acceleration. Okay, so this force equals mass of the fluid, mass of the fluid into gravitational acceleration. F equals mass into the gravitational acceleration. Okay, therefore pressure equals, instead of force, we can put mg upon area, mg upon area. But mass equals what? Mass equals density of the liquid into volume. But mass equals density into volume. Okay, so I'll take that here. Therefore, pressure equals mass is rho v, mass can rho v, the other one is g area. හැබැයි පුතා බලන්න මේ area of cross section දන්නවා නම්, if you know the area of cross section and if you know the height, but volume equals area of cross section into perpendicular height or length. Okay, therefore pressure equals rho, instead of v we write area of cross section into perpendicular height, g, again division area. v වෙනුවට h ආදේශ කළා. Look at this, area can be simplified, so pressure equals rho hg. Okay, according to the order we write this h rho g. So that's how we end up with liquid pressure h rho g. මෙන්න මේව අපි liquid pressure h rho g කියලා හොයාගන්න. හරි? එහෙනම් පුතාලා මේකේ print screen එකක් ඔය volume button power පාවිච්චි කරලා phone එකෙන් phone එකට වෙනස්. සමහරකට කෙලිම access direct key එකක් තියෙනවා. print screen එකක් ගහගන්න. Okay. Okay, now it's good. This is a tank. It's a tank. There's a water outlet. There's a water outlet here. Circular surface. පුතා මේකේ radius එක, radius of this equals radius, okay, that's equals 7 centimeters. Okay, so that's 7 centimeters. මේ පියන වහලා තියෙන 7 centimeters. Water exists up to 4.4 meters height. Okay, 4.4 meters height. So that's the height of the water column of this tank. මේ තියෙන්නේ වැව් කන්ද කියමු ඩෑම් එක cross section. Okay. Okay, first question. Pressure at the bottom. Next, very important question. මම මෙයාට x කියලා කියන්නම්. Force exert on circular surface. මේ පිටවාන වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එයා වහලා තියෙන circular door එකකින් එයා මත water වලින් ඇති කරන force එකයි අහන්නේ. What's the force exert on this surface? Okay, let's start the calculation. Okay. මේ වෙලාවේ ඔළුවට ආපු චූටි ගණන් කෑල්ලක්. MCQ එකක් වෙන්න බොහෝ විට ඉඩ තියෙනවා. Pressure at the bottom H rho G. Water වල density එක ටිකට කලින් ඉගෙන ගත්තා. That's 1000. So that's H is 4.4 rho 1000 gravitational acceleration 10. 10 times 4.4 becomes 44. Then it becomes 44,000 Pascal. That's 44,000 Pascal. Okay, so that's 44. Force exert on the circular surface. First of all, so you have to calculate the area of the circular plane equals 5r squared. So that equals 22 upon 7 into 7 into 7. Okay, so you can end up with 7 times 2, 1 remainder. So that's 154 square centimeters. Okay, so that's the area. So next thing you have to find the force. Look at this. I'll use this space. Pressure equals force upon area. Then force equals pressure into area. But so you have to concern this is square. So this is square centimeters. And you have to convert that into square meters. Yes, what's the pressure value? So that's 44,000 into area 154. පුතා මේක බෙදන්න ඕන අපි කීයද? 10,000. You learned that earlier. Okay, so simply නැවත අපි මෙයාව එන පිළිතුර 10න් බෙදන්න ඕන. අපි බලමු. Yes. So this is the answer, but you have to divide it again by 10. Then it becomes 677.6 Newton. Okay. So this is the Newton value. So you can end up with. හරි. පුතාලා මේ වගේ ඉතින් එකම යුනිට් එකම equation එක පාවිච්චි කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. So what is asked? You have to subject that. Okay, here force is asked because pressure is known, area is known. We don't know the force, so we have to subject that. Okay, so that's the way of calculation. එහෙනම් පුතා තව විනාඩි 5ක් විතර තියෙන්නේ. මේක මෙතනම අපි live එක නවත්තනවා. මම session 2 කියලා ආයේ පටන් ගන්නවා. අපි පටන් ගමු 12:30. හරි? So thank you for participating to this first session of calculations. We have covered මොනවද අපි cover කළේ? Force, motion, හරි? Equilibrium of forces, resultant force calculate කළානේ. And resultant force, equilibrium of force, Newton laws, motion graphs, හරි? උගාක් area cover කළා. මේ මොකද? Pressure, liquid pressure. හරි. මේ උගාක් ප්‍රදේශ ආවරණය කළා. තව කිහිපයයි තියෙන grade 10 cover කරලා දාන්න. හරි? එහෙනම් අපි හරියටම 12:30 වලට එමු. So thank you all of you. And හරි?